What's going on, guys? It's Zach here, bringing you guys another video. This one should be a fun one. It's going to be me just recording the subscriber league draft. I'll put it up on the YouTube channel as well, just so you guys can sort of see how that one plays out and really get a view in terms of how real drafts go, especially for people that maybe have all the same opinions as all of me. So, should be a lot of fun. Hopefully, you guys aren't going to be too harsh and steal Chris Olave from me or any of that stuff, but it should be a lot of fun. Super excited. Looks like we've got everyone here except one person so far. Should be fine. I've seen him in and out of the draft room, so we should have everybody. Um, should be just a real fun time. So yeah, super excited about this. We're about to kick off here in 3 seconds. And here we go. We'll start things off here with Ja'Marr Chase. I'm, generally interested, but I don't find myself buying him too much just because I like my roster construction quite a bit more. When I don't spend this much on a top tier player like this, I end up finding that things go better. Looks like Ja'Marr Chase is about to go for around 70. It's generally where you'll end up seeing him go for. Totally fine. This is a PPR, 3 wide receiver league, so he does have a little bit of extra value compared to what normal leagues would be, but just a good pick there. I'll just put out Kelsey just for fun. We'll see how much Kelsey ends up going for. I generally find that Mark Andrews is the better value between all the tight ends, so I don't find myself drafting Kelsey all that much, especially in auction drafts where I have a lot more control over where he's going, but Kelsey for 59 if he goes for that. It's a very good deal, so very interesting. It's a bummer that we've got Team Minix, or Minix, however it's pronounced, on auto. I've seen him in and out of the draft room, so hopefully he'll be able to make his way back in here. But, um, him getting Kelsey is not the end of the world. It's totally fine. And it looks like we're about to see Kelsey go for pre-draft value here. Alrighty, we got Chris Olave nominated here. We'll see how much people are willing to bid me up on him. Um, could get hairy here. I know I've talked him up all off season, so it could get a little bloody here, but I'll probably go up to around 45. It's probably about as high as I'm willing to go here, but it is gonna be very sad if I can't get him. I'll have to stop there. All right, I gotta back out. It's a bit of a bummer. I can't bring myself to do it. It'll be fun to see what he gets up here to, though. That's very fun. And now we got Patrick Mahomes here. That's an exciting nomination. It'll be interesting to see what he goes for. I know I've normally talked about him not exactly being worth his pre-draft value here. I find myself, if I end up with any of the quarterbacks, I end up targeting Jalen Hurts because he ends up being just a little bit cheaper. Just a little bit, but you're never going to lose your draft because you end up with Patrick Mahomes. And now he's up to 40. It's pretty common here. You'll see a player like Mahomes get nominated early and go for pretty expensive. So, makes sense, but just a little too pricey for me, especially this early in the draft. Normally, I kind of sort of use quarterbacks as like a fallback option, where if I feel like I've gotten to a point in the draft where I feel like I have too much money, that's when I'll go to try and actually draft the quarterbacks because I know that that's a good place to put money that I would have otherwise left the draft with. But so here we go with Christian McCaffrey. It's interesting seeing him at $9. I'm certainly willing to pay up to like 50 for him, so we'll see what happens here. I don't find myself drafting Christian McCaffrey very often just because he's not somebody that is like a value in my mind. I don't see him being really a player that really exceeds his ADP. I think there's a lot of really quality running backs in the middle rounds that I find myself targeting a lot more often. But I'll go up to 50 here. Yeah, we'll let other people run with it now. I've seen Team Sokka be involved in like every single bid here, and not actually win any one, but it'll be fun to see what kind of team they build. Team Sokka is drafting overseas. It's 4 a.m. for them right now, so shout out to them for actually making it to the draft. That's pretty cool. McCaffrey going for 63 is a pretty good value. Got no problem doing that. We're probably going to see Justin Jefferson go for over 70. It should be a bit of a bloodbath there. But we'll see what happens. Normally, I was like, I can't let him go for that cheap. I've got to be involved there. Yeah, I'm probably willing to go up to about 60 here. Not someone that I find myself leaving many drafts with, but 59 is something I'm more than comfortable doing. We'll see if they let me have him. Probably not. I feel like this is going to be a tough draft for me. Everyone's got it out to it's a target on my back here, but it'll be fun to see what sort of team we can put together here. Yeah, okay, I'm out there. God, Sokka bid there. I really was considering going with the Christian McCaffrey, Justin Jefferson duo. That would have been pricey but fun. So now that I've missed out on Chris Olave, it's pretty interesting. Sort of changes up my strategy a little bit. It sort of makes me feel like I'm a guaranteed to be targeting a guy like Mark Andrews. He'll be a definite target for me. And then I'm also most certainly going to be targeting a couple of the other higher end wide receivers. I will try to probably leave the draft with a guy like A.J. Brown and Jalen Waddle or T. Higgins or Garrett Wilson or Amon-Ra. Try and get two of those top tier guys. Um, if I can do that and then fill in the rest later, that'll feel pretty good. Funny, they think I'm live streaming. I was going to live stream this draft here, but YouTube has a policy where when you try to live stream, they need to like do like a 24-hour review period. So I didn't check it till the morning of the draft, and it's not going to work out. So Tyreek Hill for 60 is a really great value. That's fun. Bijan's going for way too cheap here. Let's just sort of knock it up. All right, there we go. Someone else had 45 in mind. I'll probably go to 55. That's totally fine for me. All right, not gonna do that any higher though. I'm seeing Bijan get super expensive here. I don't really see the value at this point. Like I'd actually rather have Nick Chubb. He's gonna go much cheaper than this. So, um, Yeah, I just don't find myself spending that much on Bijan, although obviously he's got RB1 overall upside, but Bijan's now the second most expensive player in the draft, and that seems a little rich for me. Eckler for 57 is a really good value. I'd also rather have Eckler than Bijan, although it's close. But in a full PPR, I think Eckler's a better bet to make. So this is someone we'll be interested in. Um, really like to anchor my roster with a guy like Amon-Ra. I think he's honestly got a shot to lead the league in receptions this year. He's not as exciting to me as a guy like Chris Olave. I don't think he's got like wide receiver one overall upside, but he's certainly got top five upside in his range of outcomes. He's just a damn good player. Not gonna get it ahead though. Not gonna let myself get bid up too much here. There's plenty of other players remaining that I like quite a bit. Not gonna overpay when I got AJ Brown almost as much. If I go AJ Brown and Nick Chubb too, that'd feel pretty good. Plenty of guys left. So no reason to super reach on anybody. No reason to overpay just yet. And here we go. I think everybody knows I love him in this league too, so it'll be fun to see how much he goes for. Obviously, I want him quite a bit, but we'll see what happens. Prepared for him to get pretty out of hand here, but we'll just go to 40. I'm willing to go to about 50 here. Obviously, I like Chubb quite a bit. People are not letting me have him for cheap here. 50 will be the hard limit. Not going to go over that, but 50 for Chubb is perfectly good. That's a bummer. All right, we're moving on there. Just don't want to get into a spot where I'm overspending just to get a couple guys early. I want to make sure that I've got everything I want later on. There are a lot of those middle tier guys that I'm super excited about. And I have no problem, like I said, it's kind of a nice fallback option knowing that if I've gone too long without drafting players, then I just pivot and draft a high end quarterback and still end up with a really high end roster. Derrick Henry's someone that I just don't find myself drafting all that much. I know that there's a very real world this season where he puts up, RB1 overall numbers, and it's just an actually dominant running back yet again. But the the risk's just too high there. I don't want to be the guy that drafts him this early. Obviously, if he's $8, I'm interested, but we'll just go up to 30 and call it good. But we'll move on from there. Um, just not someone that I'm feeling the need to draft. Although 34, I've got to do that. Um, just can't let him go for that cheap. And a lot of the drafts I've done, I see Derrick Henry being that guy that ends up going for very, very cheap at the end, early on in the draft. It's a guy that really nobody wants to take the bullet on and draft him, but obviously nobody wants somebody else in the league to get him for super cheap. Um, Crazy. We just saw him go for $38. It's a pretty early Drake London nomination. Normally, what you'll see is when you nominate a player early like this, they do get out of hand. It ends up being somebody that goes for very expensive, even though they maybe shouldn't go for that much. Like $20 for Drake London is just way too much. I mean, like he could be a great player this season, obviously, but just not somebody that I find myself really targeting. I'm gonna nominate Cooper Kupp here. See what happens. It'll be really interesting to see how much he goes for. To me, he's like worth about like $30 at this point. He's by no means worth $50, and I wouldn't pay nearly that much. But it'll be interesting to see how much people here are willing to pay. Yeah, at this point, we're too expensive. Dumpster Fire is really starting to look at going the Cooper Kupp, Derrick Henry route and just being old, scary draft picks, but have a ton of upside. I do appreciate the approach. It's something that could certainly pay off and just win him the league if that pans out. Jesus, Saka's been very active early on. Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, and Christian McCaffrey. Joe Mixon's another pretty uninspiring pick, but he's obviously got top 10 upside. He's got it's a pretty safe draft pick. Should have a lot of volume. I don't really find myself drafting much of him either, just because I prefer the values of guys later. He just seems like an expensive version of guys like Alexander Madison, J.K. Dobbins, guys that are still going to be workhorses for their team on good offenses and just cost half as much. So I don't find myself drafting Mixon that much, although I've got no real problem with the value there. I think he's going to be a good draft pick overall. Glad people are not letting this happen, though. I'd rather him go for a little bit more expensive. Don't want him to get bought for 30. Makes it a little bit too easy for people if they get to save that much money. So we're seeing a pretty real mix of values and people going for way underneath or way over their pre-draft values. So you can tell that everyone here has like a real opinion, which is really cool. I don't really disagree with anything that's happened either, other than the Drake London purchase. So everything else is pretty much in line with what I would have expected. So no problems. Najee's really going for 4 right now. Not gonna let that happen. No longer interested though. So we saw Najee Harris go for $23. I think that's a perfectly fine value. I think he's going to be, a really solid like low end running back too, with like, so a couple spike weeks when he falls in the end zone. I don't find myself targeting him very often just because I don't think the upside is really there unless the Steelers' offense is just elite somehow and he falls in the end zone a lot. But um, not something I really get excited about drafting right now. Be interesting to see what ETN goes for. I know I've talked a lot on the channel about how much I'm just not exactly a fan of where he's going in drafts right now. I don't really see the value there, although a lot of you guys have disagreed with me on that. I think we could see a situation where maybe there's a few of you that actually like him enough to go overpaying here, but we'll see what happens. At a certain point, I need to start looking to actually draft a player. We're 17 picks in. I don't have anyone yet. So Devontae Adams is someone I've been a little interested in. The thing is that I find myself ranking a guy like Stephon Diggs higher, and he just ends up being cheaper significantly enough that I don't find myself drafting Adams all that much. Still think Adams is going to have a great year, but I don't think he has the ceiling that a guy like Diggs or even A.J. Brown and stuff do, just on much better offenses. If he goes for cheap, I'm interested. It's like I will pay 48, probably go up to about 50 for him, but don't want to spend more on Adams than I would on Diggs, and Diggs would be about my cap at 50. The goal is pretty much to spend $50 on wide receiver one, whether that be Adams, Diggs, or A.J. Brown. I'll take Devontae Adams. It's not bad. Not someone I find myself drafting very often, but for $50, I think it's a perfectly good price. Pollard is someone else that I think is super exciting. I think he's got legitimate RB1 overall upside. A guy that obviously we saw put up top 6 numbers at the running back position last season, and that was with Ezekiel Elliott there. We could see a situation now where Tony Pollard finally gets goal line work, and then he'd be an absolute stud. I'm willing to spend $40 on him. I'm not going to go too much higher just because I spent so much money on Adams, but I will get up to 41 if I have to. I'd go to 42. Don't want to let him get a value there. Can't let that happen. I will stop after this though, but I just think Pollard's just a very real value, and it seems like he's the kind of guy that might go cheap in this draft for some reason. Yeah, I can't do it. 43 is way too cheap though. Oh baby, we got Justin Herbert now, a guy that you guys know I'm super excited about. We'll see how much he goes for. I'm willing to go up to about 20 to be completely honest. He's someone that I genuinely think can break out this. Oh man. See if I get him for 16. I'll go to 18. I'm stopping at 18. All right. Well, nobody wants to let me have any fun here. No problem with it though. I mean, Herbert for $19, $20 is totally fine. If you look at how much a lot of the quarterbacks go for, like Burrow goes for more than that. Burrow's 23. Lamar goes for more than that, 24. And I would rather have Herbert than any of those guys. So no problem with the value there whatsoever. Just not something that I was willing to do this early in the draft because there's still a lot of other guys that I like quite a bit. And AJ Brown's one of them. So we'll see what happens with AJ Brown. Obviously, I'm interested. Would be more than okay paying up to like 45 for him. Obviously, that would hamstring our running back room quite a bit, but I don't have any problem doing that. Um, if you guys have watched all off season, which I imagine you have, you know that I'm really comfortable with a lot of these middle tier running backs. We'll see how much those guys end up actually going for in this draft because I know a lot of you guys, a lot of the people in this league have obviously watched the channel and know, all my middle round targets, um, guys like Madison, Montgomery, Dobbins, Brian Robinson, Connor, Sanders. Those guys are not going to come cheap in this draft probably, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But just something to see. It'll be fun to see what happens there. Jahmyr Gibbs is another person I'd consider, along with Rhamondre Stevenson. So we'll see what happens there. When it's my turn to nominate, I'll probably put up Mark Andrews and make him happen, just so I know going forward if I have to budget that money for him because he's something that's really important for me. And if I don't get him, it might push me towards one of those top tier quarterbacks. And Aaron Jones for 21 is too cheap. I'll go to 22. I'd be willing to go to like 25 for him. He's someone that I think is going to have another really solid season. He's just someone that I think people are bored of drafting just because he's been around the block. There's nothing new or exciting about him, but obviously I still think he's an elite player. Going to be on a decent to good team this season, and obviously he's just going to be given enough volume, especially in the passing game, to be really relevant this season again. Josh Jacobs, I think, is totally fine where he's being drafted right now. He's just somebody that I don't find myself drafting all that often, just because I think that there are better values around him. I'd prefer Pollard, for example, but he's somebody that I think a lot of people end up shying away from I'm not going to get up to very high bidding on him because I have Devontae Adams already. I'm not going to put myself in a spot where I have two high-end Raiders because I don't want to be that tied to a franchise that I don't believe in anymore. But um, yeah, so we'll see what happens there. I think Josh Jacobs is going to be a really good player though. And here's Josh Allen. It'll be um, interesting to see how much he goes for. I think he's very reasonably priced at $35. I've got no problem doing that. I'll go up to 25 here and just see what happens. 28 is kind of a weird bid, but whatever. I prefer multiples of 5. I'll go to 30. I'm not going to go any higher, but if I can get him for 30, I'm interested there. Just not someone that I find myself going out of my way for like I would even for Jalen Hurts. And now that Justin Herbert's off the board, and here's Jalen Hurts. I'm certainly willing to pay for him here. I think he could be a really quality asset for us. Obviously, he's going to be a top 3 quarterback this season, assuming all the things go right. If I can get him for under 30, I will. And I'll go up to 30. I think he's just going to be a really solid asset this season. The guy that, he is my quarterback 1 in my rankings. He's someone that I really do think could be a top tier player this season. Another guy that I think he has even more ceiling than what he's had in the past, but not going to overpay for him. So we'll put Mark Andrews out now. Make him happen here. Just really want to make sure we can get him on our roster. Somebody that I think is going to have a shot to be the number 1 tight end this season, and someone that I am really excited about. And I'm willing to go up to 30 here. I would imagine I'm going to be able to get him at 30, but we'll see what happens. These guys don't want to let me have any fun here. Not going to go any higher there. It'll suck to not get him, but if I don't, it's okay. I'm not going to drastically overpay. These guys are not letting me have anything. So they just asked me to speed up the draft clock here. Figured we'd get picks rolling a little bit faster, and no problem doing that. We got 204 picks to get through, and that way we're not going to be here all night. So hopefully that speeds things up a little bit and gets things rolling a little bit faster here. DK is someone I don't find myself drafting all that much of. Obviously, for $16, I'm interested, but I'm not going to put myself in a spot where I spend over 20 on him. That's as high as I'll go. Yeah, there we go. We don't need to beat around the bush anymore. We can get him out of here. So now that we've missed out on Hurts, all 3 of the top 3 quarterbacks, Andrews, Kelsey, and Justin Herbert, we need to sort of take stock about what's left here and see what other guys we want to grab. A couple guys that I'm pretty happy, really comfortable wanting to make sure I get. At running back at this point, I think I do want to grab Jahmyr Gibbs. I'll probably grab Jahmyr Gibbs, Madison, Montgomery, and Dobbins. Kind of just make sure I get those 4. Obviously, it's possible that people in this league don't let me have all of those guys. Wide receiver, I really do want to get Ridley to go with. Probably, I don't know if I can afford that, but with Ridley and Higgins, we do have the money to do that. So At tight end, obviously, you guys know I want to get Dallas Goedert if he ends up going for a reasonable price. So we'll see what Gibbs gets up to. I'll go up to 30, but not any higher. Go to 31 maybe, but 32 is as high as we're going. Not going to go any higher than that, though, so that's a bummer. We're going to have plenty of money left, though, so that means we're probably going to be wanting to target these top tier wide receivers. We could go Adams and Diggs. That's an option. Maybe one we should take, because looking at these guys, I'm not super high on Lamar or Burrow. They're not guys that I find myself taking very often. And then obviously I don't find myself taking Justin Fields either. So I'm looking at that lower tier of quarterback. I'm also looking at I've already missed out on the top 2 tiers of tight end, missing out on Kelsey and Andrews. So don't want to put myself in a spot where I don't have any other studs like that. So we're getting to the point where we're gonna have to start forcing some players onto our roster. So yeah, we'll probably force Diggs onto the roster here. Just give ourselves an elite duo of wide receiver. Um, you know, basically punting on tight end and quarterback at this point, so we've got to make sure that we've got absolute studs everywhere else, and that's okay. We can start 4 wide receivers here. It's a 3 wide receiver PPR league, so I'm okay having mediocre running backs if that means my wide receivers are going to dominate. I'm happy to let that be the group that sort of carries us through this league. So that'll be the plan. We'll see what happens. Um, just gotta find value at running back and stuff because it looks like a lot of people still have plenty of money left, and that's going to be concerning when we get to those lower tier running backs that I know I've talked up, and I know a lot of you guys are going to be interested in as well when we get there. I'll do Saquon for 42. I think he's a perfectly fine draft pick, probably going to be a top 5 running back again this season. Not someone that I really target very often, but if he's cheap, I'm certainly interested. I'm I'm willing to go to like 45, 46 here. Um, Maybe even a little bit more. I think he's going to be a good player for me this season. He's not someone that I'm targeting really, but it looks like he's going to go pretty cheap here, and that's going to really solidify my running back room. Having him as my RB1, that's going to feel really nice. So this is a really weird team. It's not something that I've drafted very often at all, but um, I do think that those 2 guys, Saquon and Adams, can really help carry us through the course of the season. And we're a little poor now. We're down to $104. It's not too poor. We're like about middle of the pack at this point in the draft, but we've got 2 really good players. It's basically like we've already drafted like at the back end of the first would be how I'd look at it. So then you end up taking Saquon and Adams at the turn or something. If you think about it like that, it's a pretty standard start. It's something that you'd see pretty often in a snake draft, and they're 2 guys that I have no problem with. They're not guys that I have ranked ahead of or really behind ADP. I think they're ranked just right, so I don't really target them very often, but I got both of them for pretty cheap. Think they're going to be really solid assets for me this season. Like I said, I got them both pretty cheap, about $10 off each compared to pre-draft value. So with $104 left, you know the exercise. We're going to look at our kicker and defense with our bench spots. That's a total of $16 we've got to spend there, which means we have $88 to go between our 3 wide receiver or 2 wide receivers, flex, tight end. That's 4 spots plus another running back and a quarterback spot. So I've got $88 for a total of 6 spots, which means we get to spend roughly $15 per player. Looking at the tight ends and the quarterbacks, we're probably spending much less than that on those 2. At tight end, we're probably going to be looking to spend less than 10. At quarterback, we're probably spending $1 or 2. Probably going to go with like Geno Smith and Anthony Richardson or Kirk Cousins and Anthony Richardson. So we're going to have plenty of money there, which means we're going to have about 4 spots for $80, which means we get to do $20 per player. You guys know that I've got my running backs listed down here. Guys that are probably going to go for more than their pre-draft value here, but not necessarily guys that are going to get up to $20. So we should have some extra money. That means we can probably afford to go a little bit bigger at wide receiver, meaning we can probably go Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper, and maybe Mike Williams. That'd be a good start there. So if we can fill out our wide receivers rooms here, I guess we could go T. Higgins as well. But we'll see what happens there. T. Higgins, Waddle, and CD are all in consideration here. If we can get any of those guys for, less than significantly more than their pre-draft value, I'd be interested, although I don't want to put myself in a handicap spot financially. So we'll see what happens there. CD going for 45 after Diggs going for 48, Wilson for 43. Very standard prices. I've got no problem with any of them. I think they're all really fine values, and they're all going to obviously be great this season. So Waddle's someone I'm willing to go up to about 35 on. Obviously, it'll hamstring us a little bit. Okay, 36 is as high as we're going to go. I didn't mean to click 36 there, but that's fine. I think Waddle's going to be a really solid player. I especially prefer him if he's my wide receiver 2. I think he's going to be a little bit boomer bust, a little bit less consistent than his normal wide receiver 1 would be, just because he's the wide receiver 2 for his own team, and obviously Tyreek Hill is going to be the guy that eats every single week there. So don't exactly want Waddle to be my wide receiver 1, but if he's your wide receiver 2, I think you're really, really solid at the wide receiver position. Devonta Smith's another guy. I view him very similarly to T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle. They're all about the same to me. I'd put them all right behind that tier of like the Garrett Wilsons, the Chris Olaves of the world, behind CeeDee Lambs. But all of those guys are going to be really high-end wide receiver 2s, low-end wide receiver 1s. Like all of them a lot. They're guys that I've got no problem drafting. In one of my drafts, it's actually my biggest league, my biggest money, or biggest buy-in league at least. It's an auction draft, and my 3 wide receivers ended up being Chris Olave, obviously, and then T. Higgins and Jalen Waddle. So went really wide receiver heavy in that one, and obviously got guys that I really liked there. So I think they're all really great picks, and I've got no problem passing up on any of them, or targeting any of them. We'll see what happens with Lamar here. I don't find myself buying him that often. He's just not somebody that I think is really going to exceed his pre-draft value or beat his ADP. He's someone that I really think is, he's several years removed from being a legitimately league-winning asset or even like a reliable fantasy contributor. So it's just really high risk to spend that much draft capital on a guy that we really haven't seen perform at a high level in a while. I know on a per game basis he's been great, but injuries are a concern. He's got a new offensive coordinator. It just could be a really bumpy ride for them, especially early on in the year. And I do get a little bit worried about it, so I don't find myself drafting Lamar very often at all. So Higgins is someone I like quite a bit. I love him if he's my wide receiver too. I'm willing to go up to like about 33, 34 here. Won't go any higher, but if he's my wide receiver too, that's really nice. I'll stop there. I'm not going to go higher, but if he's my wide receiver too, that gives me a really solid duo. A guy that, with that Davante Adams being a nice stabilizer for the roster, Higgins is going to be a really nice like weekly boomer bust option and someone that's really going to help anchor the roster. Let's have a little bit of fun. I'll throw him out here, see what happens. I'm sure he's going to get bid up like crazy, just because, I've talked about him a ton this season. But we'll see what happens. I've got to put my foot down on at least one of these guys. Really force his way onto my roster just because you guys know how much I love him, and please let me have him. Oh, man. I'll go to 15. It feels like I've got to get Montgomery. I've got to get at least one of the guys that I've pounded the gavel for. We'll see what happens. Are they going to let me have him for 14? Oh, man. I got to do it. This is, you guys know how much I've talked him up all off season. I've got to get him on the roster. He's someone that I gotta get one of the guys that I've talked up all season. Oh my god. Um, I'm not gonna go higher than 18, but at 18 I'm gonna do it just because I gotta get somebody that I've talked up all off season. That was a lot. But I've got to be true to my word. At least get one of the three guys I've talked up everywhere: Olave, Andrews, or Herbert, and Montgomery. I've talked up all four of those guys, and the only one I left with was Montgomery, and it cost me 3 times his pre-draft value. So I had to do it, but um, it did feel bad. It's fun seeing how expensive Calvin Ridley gets these days. I think a lot of people are really excited about him. I think it's completely within reason as well. I view him really similarly to the Jalen Waddles, T. Higgins of the world. I'm just a little bit behind them, but I've got no problem taking him where he's going right now. Ridley for 40 is a pretty penny. He was more expensive than Waddle, Higgins, and Devonta Smith. That's a little much for me, but I totally get why he's going for that. DJ Moore's someone I just can't find myself getting very excited about. He's just like, he's consistently been on low passing volume offenses with bad quarterback play. That didn't change the season, so I don't really see a world where he performs any better than he has in the past. It seems silly just to hop on he's got a new quarterback bandwagon and be super excited about the possibility of him breaking out for, we've been looking for it to happen for like the last 5 years at this point and just hasn't. Um, Obviously, he's a great player, and I do think he is a wide receiver one caliber wide receiver in the NFL. I think he's probably a top 20 NFL wide receiver, maybe top 10 even, but the quarterback play is not great. There is target competition in the offense between him, Mooney, Claypool, Cole Kmet, and the target volume is just not going to be that great. They'll maybe pass the ball 25 times a game this year. That's really concerning for someone that even if he gets a 30% target share, you're looking at 7.5, 8 targets a week, and that's just not going to be enough to justify his current ADP by any means. Ramondre is about to go for cheap there. I'm willing to pay up to 20 for him. It's expensive, especially for a player that I he'd be my flex play. He would be my running back too. Montgomery would then just basically slot into my flex, but um, really do need to start conserving money here. Like I said, now I've got $52. I've got to spend 16 on my kicker, defense, and bench. So we've got a total of $36 to spend across 9 positions. That's going to be a little bit tough, or across 4 positions. Wow. DeAndre Hopkins is another one that I just don't find myself really getting all that excited about. I've talked about it many times this offseason. I think that he's he's just getting up in there in age, so there's always the concern that he falls off a cliff from a performance standpoint. He's dealt with injury each of the last couple of years. On top of that, the Titans' passing offense is really not going to do that much this season. Um, so it's just a scenario where like I don't want to be relying on DeAndre Hopkins on a weekly basis. It seems like more of a name recognition thing than anything. Um, like there's a real world that exists where even without injury, Treylon Burks just comes on and outperforms him, really breaks out this season. And if that's the case, or if he's even not dominating targets, it's going to be really tough for him to perform at a high level. I don't think he's going to be a guy that I'm trusting on a weekly basis, and just not someone that I target very often. But for $11, I don't exactly have a problem with it. I think that's a perfectly fine price tag. Puts him right around guys like Mike Evans, Mike Williams, Terry McLaurin. I think that's a very reasonable price. It's been crazy seeing how expensive Dameon Pierce has gotten lately. Um, I was pretty significantly below ADP on him coming into the offseason, and then all the hype came up around him, and he started playing a lot of snaps for them during the preseason, and it seems more and more like he's fended off Devin Singletary, and he's going to be the workhorse for that team, and that's really exciting. But along with that, and along with me then raising him in my rankings, his ADP went up too, so I do still find myself significantly behind him on ADP. I think that there are guys like I'd rather have Miles Sanders, I'd rather have David Montgomery, I'd rather have Alexander Madison, I'd rather have J.K. Dobbins. A lot of guys going after him that I prefer, and just don't find myself drafting Dameon Pierce all that often. Although I do think that especially in non-PPR formats, he's going to be really solid. I think he could easily rush for over 1,000 yards this season. He's got some touchdown upside as well if the Texans actually score at all this season. So there's plenty to like about Dameon Pierce. It's just not someone that I find myself targeting all that often. Another player with a lot to like that I don't find myself targeting that often, that's going to be Breece Hall. Somebody who's obviously a really talented player on what should be a good offense this year, but the concern is obviously just coming off of a torn ACL and then competing for touches with Dalvin Cook. It's very rare that we see running backs come back from a torn ACL and perform at a high level. The two recent examples that are really notable would be Adrian Peterson like 11 years ago and then Jamal Charles shortly after. Um, those two guys are Hall of Fame caliber running backs, and it's a little too early for me to come out and say that Breece Hall is that caliber of a player. He obviously looked really great last season, but I just don't want to bet on a guy coming off of an injury of that magnitude. Obviously, he's really young, he's really explosive, he's an elite athlete, he could come back and be great this season, but I think there's just as likely of a chance that he comes back and he's the 1B to Dalvin Cook all season. And if that's the case, he's going to be a less efficient version of himself from last season, getting less of the touches. So a lot of question marks there. I don't find myself overpaying for him at all. I think he's more of like a $10 asset in an auction draft, someone that should be going a couple rounds later, and just not someone that I'm super excited about very often. Now, Brandon Ayuk is someone that I'm quite high on. I think he's going to be a really nice weekly PPR play, someone that I do expect to perform at a high level all season. I would go up to about 10. That's as high as I'm willing to go, but he's going to be a really great draft pick to whoever drafts him here. He's a really solid player and someone that I do like quite a bit. I think, in all honesty, I think he's the wide receiver one for San Francisco. Someone that I like a lot. I think he's got a legitimate shot to finish the top 20 wide receiver this season. And at his price tag, I think he's someone that I'm totally targeting in a lot of drafts right now. So Amari Cooper is another player that I've been pretty excited about most of this offseason. Looking at our budget here, we've got $36 to spend on our four starting lineup spots. Um, two of those are going to be relatively cheap, so we can afford Amari Cooper here. It's a lot, but I think it's okay if we spend up to like 20 on him. Um, don't want to go any higher than that, but I think it's okay to spend 20 on a guy right now if it's a really high end performer. Want to make sure that we're putting as much money into our starting lineup as possible. I don't want to leave too much for our bench because we obviously want to have the best starting lineup possible. We don't want to put ourselves in a spot where we've left quality starters on the table because we wanted to like really load up on our bench. It results in a suboptimal roster, not something that you're going to be winning your league with. And obviously, we're playing to win. I'm clearly playing to win this league as well. I want to make sure that you guys believe that I'm actually good at what I'm talking about here. So it's important that I do well in this league, and obviously, it's in my best interest to perform at a high level. So Don't want to be putting too much stock in my bench here. I want to be getting as much of a high quality starting lineup as possible. So Lockett's someone I like quite a bit as well. If he's my wide receiver 3 or 4, I think that's really solid. I'd go up to about 10 for him. I view him in the same light of a Brandon Ayuk. Both are really solid players, really quality guys to roster on your team. And if they end up being your flex, your wide receiver 3, I think that's totally fine. Looking at the wide receivers remaining, I think I'm going to go to 12. I won't go any higher, but looking at the wide receivers remaining, it's like him and Mike Williams are two guys that I'm really targeting. And I don't find myself targeting Deontay, Godwin, or Christian Watson at cost very often. Keenan Allen's someone I like, and I would consider it, especially in a PPR format. So if he goes for cheap, I'm certainly interested. He'd have to be like a $20 player. So if he goes for 20, I'm interested. Anything less, anything more, I'd feel like I got to bow out. But we'll see what happens there. Like as you can see, my max bid is 29. I don't have a quarterback or a tight end yet. I don't want to be completely dumpster diving. So I'll go to 20. Got to be out of there now. Keenan Allen's going to be a rock star this season if he manages to stay healthy throughout the whole course of the year. He's a guy that I really do think could be the league leader in receptions. I think he, Amon-Ra, Jefferson, Adams are probably guys that are in contention to be, leading the league in that category. And I like all of them quite a bit. But let's see. I'll nominate Watson. It's too early for me to be nominating other players that I want. Want to let people spend their money a little bit here. Christian Watson, someone that I've pretty much been out on all off season. I've drafted him in a couple leagues that are like either non PPR or leagues that reward like more explosive plays. So like I'm in a couple leagues that have pretty significant point bonuses for large plays or large games, so like 100-yard receiving games and stuff. And if those bonuses are significant, then I'm willing to consider a guy like Christian Watson because it can actually be a difference maker. He's a guy that I think he'll be an inconsistent asset, but in those kind of leagues, if those bonuses are significant, it can be a real weak turner. But in standard scoring formats or just normal PPR scoring formats, I don't find myself super excited about Christian Watson this season. I think he's probably going to be out targeted by Romeo Doubs in this offense. He'll obviously probably lead the team in the receiving yards and touchdowns because he's a much more explosive player, but there's just a little bit of concern for me surrounding him right now. Oh, Zay Flowers. I'll go to 2. Not going to go to 3, but it's just too early for me to spend that much on him. But he's obviously a guy that I love. He's a guy I've talked up quite a bit this offseason, but it's really funny seeing him go for $7, $8 here. I bet he gets up to 10. He's obviously a super exciting player. He's someone that I do think can break out this season, but $10 is a little bit too much for me if you look at I'd rather have Mike Williams, obviously. I'd probably rather have Jerry Jeudy, even with the injury baked in. I'd rather have Christian Kirk. I'd rather have Jahan Dotson. Um, Too many receivers. I'd rather have Addison, but not by much. So there's not too many receivers ahead of him that I'd still like. So totally get why he'd go for $10. Just got all the upside in the world, and he is someone that I'm excited about. So worth noting. But and Jeudy for $5 is quite a value. So now we're seeing Justin Fields. I don't find myself buying Justin Fields all that often. I know I have the money to do it, and I could be looking his way right now, but I'd rather just strengthen my bench. He's not somebody that I am excited about starting on a weekly basis. And I don't know, there's too much risk for me. I'd much rather take if I'm going to take a rushing quarterback, I'd rather just take Anthony Richardson later, pair him with a Kirk Cousins, and then let that ride, see what happens, and then worst case scenario, then I just play um, Anthony Richardson or the Cousins or Geno Smith sort of player. I am leaning towards Geno Smith a little bit right now because I have Tyler Lockett. That's a really nice stack option. Super cheap. I bet I'd get him for $1. Somebody that I think would be a really nice addition to the roster and give me a lot of stability over the course of the season as well. along with that weekly boom or bust because of hit the stack with Lockett. That being said, Trevor Lawrence is someone that I'm willing to spend up to like 8 on. I'm not going to go any higher, but um, I think that eight's perfectly fine for Lawrence. I think he's like the last guy in this tier that could take that step forward. Don't find myself drafting Deshaun Watson very often, and after Trevor Lawrence, you're looking at Kirk Cousins, Tua, Richardson, Geno, Russ is an option for me as well. Um, Overall, though, I think I'm probably looking at going like Geno Smith and Anthony Richardson or something here, just sort of trying to find some upside at the quarterback position while I get a nice stabilizing guy. $18 for Trevor Lawrence is insane. I got no problem with it, but he's going for more than what Justin Herbert went for at this point. Yeah, Herbert went for 19. He's up to 20. It's just too much for me for Trevor Lawrence. Although you do get to a point where he is the last player in a tier, and that is where you'll see players get for a little bit more expensive. Guys, everybody's that doesn't have a top tier quarterback left is looking at their money remaining and saying, okay, I've got to get one, and because they have the money to do it, they're gonna overpay for a guy. So I get why it's happening. It's just not something that I would necessarily do myself. Deontay Johnson is another guy that I'm super excited about this season. I do think he's going to be like a middle tier wide receiver two this season. He's someone that's going to PPR his way to relevancy, and obviously, I don't think he's going to catch 0 touchdowns again this season. I think you're going to see that department find his way up to like 6, 7 touchdowns this year, and if that happens, he's got legitimate top 20 wide receiver upside. The thing is, there's just a lot of wide receivers that I view that like that. Like I think Mike Williams is just as much upside, although more of a boomer bust light. Lockett's a guy that I like quite a bit in a similar vein. Um, let's see who else. I think, Jahan Dotson's up there. Marquise Brown's got a shot. I think Christian Kirk's up there. Dotson's got a shot. Jordan Addison's got a shot. And it's just a little bit too expensive for me to be looking at spending $20 on a guy like him here. If I'm spending $20 on a player, I want it to be a guy that I think can actually like significantly move the needle for me. And I think he's just going to be a really consistent guy, and he can find consistency and like good overall wide receiver two production later on in the draft. But we are getting to that point in the draft where everybody has money left and they're just trying to find a way to spend it. And you will see that happen pretty often in drafts. You'll see guys, get excited about a player that they want. They'll realize they have the money and they'll put themselves in a spot where they've only got $1 or $2 left per player. So I get why it happens. This is normally the part in the draft where you'll see players start getting out of hand in the price tag department. And here's Christian Kirk. He's a really nice flex, especially in PPR formats. I'm willing to go up to like 7 or 8 on him. He's someone that I will overpay for, but not too much. I'm just think he's a really solid asset, a guy that you can play, especially in a PPR format and in a three wide receiver league. If he's your flex, oh, I wanted him there. Not gonna do it. Not gonna overpay here because I think I can get Mike Williams for a similar price. I think Mike Williams is a lot more weekly upside, gonna give us a bit of a bigger ceiling on the roster, and I'll feel a little bit better about doing that. But no real problem about having spent $9 on Christian Kirk if you wanted to do that. I think that's totally fine. Rashad White's a guy that I've just been kind of hot and cold on all off season. I think that he's going to be a guy that probably PPRs his way to being like a mid-tier running back two this season. But I think there are some concerning signs. The Buccaneers' offensive line's been brutal. Their center Ryan Jensen's already done for the year. His career is probably over at this point. Um, for $10, I will do it though. I won't go higher than 10, but there's too many warning signs. Sean Tucker's somebody that I like. I think he could legitimately challenge Rashad White for touches, but yeah, thought I was going to get a value. But yeah, there's just concerning signs. The Bucks offense could be really bad. It could be a little bit more of a timeshare than what I think a lot of people were expecting. But on the flip side, he is the running back one in an offense that's going to throw the ball to the running backs quite a bit. So for $11, I think he's a perfectly fine pick. I've got no problem with that there. Sky Moore is someone that I like quite a bit from a talent standpoint. I just think it's going to be a little bit muddy in Kansas City this season. He's not someone that I find myself targeting all that often, just because I think that the Chiefs wide receiver is going to be really hard to predict. I think the MVS is going to factor in a lot more than people expect. Richie James is obviously relevant. Kadarius Toney is going to be a factor. Obviously, Sky Moore is probably the wide receiver one there, but there's just other players that are around the same price tag that I'd prefer. And we got our first kicker nomination, Justin Tucker. Um, you can do that in an auction draft if you want like a free win. Nominate a kicker early. You either get him for $1, which is nice, or you make someone else spend two. So it's a free win, no problem taking that approach. It's not a bad idea. Same thing with the defense if you want to take that route. Um, Certainly something you can do. So Hawkinson's someone I will consider. Like I said, we've got $36, or now we've got $24 to spend on these three spots. Our quarterback's going to be $1 or two, so basically we've got $23 to spend on two spots. We can go into that a little bit more if we need to make some of our bench players $1. Um, I will go up to 14 on Hawkinson here. Not going to overpay, but it would have been a nice option here to get ourselves one of those top tier tight ends, someone that I do believe in, especially in an auction draft. I just want you guys to look at these pre-draft values. For a couple more dollars, you can get a guy like Dallas Goedert compared to a guy like Cole Kmet. So like the $4 difference is something that absolutely makes sense for me, in my opinion. I highly recommend that you do get a guy like Dallas Goedert if you believe in Darren Waller. You can take that approach. Um, I highly recommend getting one of those guys because of how much cheaper they are here compared to like in an actual draft you're spending a sixth round draft pick on Dallas Goedert, and that feels a little bit worse than spending just $6 on a guy. So obviously I'm not going to overpay for Dallas Goedert. I don't think he's going to be like a special sort of league winning asset, not someone that I'm going to make force onto my roster, but someone that I do like quite a bit, and for $6 he's going to be a bit of a needle mover for me here. Just looking down the board here, other guys that I'm going to be targeting. Obviously, you guys know I like J.K. Dobbins. I'd like to get Jahan Dotson, Cortland Sutton if they're available. Both these running backs, Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, are great. I like Addison a lot. Gabe Davis is a good option. I'll start tagging some quarterbacks here as well. Raheem Mostert's another really nice option if you just want to start the season out strong. I'm going to nominate Goddard. I'm going to try and get him onto the roster. Especially, I'm trying to do this while guys like Darren Waller and George Kittle are still on the board so that people don't get a little too excited. Hoping that people are willing to sort of let me have Goddard and hope that they can get Waller or Kittle later. I'm not going to go higher than this, so if somebody outbids me here, I won't get him. But getting Goddard for 9 would be really nice. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go to 11. If I can't get him for 11, I got to move on because it's going to handicap the rest of my roster too much. But something that I had to consider. I was willing to do that. Um, that's okay. We're just gonna have a bad tight end and a bad quarterback, but we'll have really good everything else. So that's okay. Darren Waller is someone that I would have been considering here at this point if I didn't already have Saquon. I don't want to bet that much on the Giants' offense. It's just a little bit too much stock to put in one team that I'm not even that confident in performing at a high level this season. So yeah, at tight end, we're probably looking at like David Njoku. Um, I like Juwan Johnson, obviously. Um, There's plenty of other guys that I like. Pat Freiermuth is a decent option for $3. So we'll play around with that. George Kittle for $7 is like totally fine. It's not something that I find myself doing very often. I just don't really see the upside there for him. I'm worried that it's going to be, the number four option in a run heavy offense, not something that's going to be super reliable on a weekly basis. But he certainly got touchdown upside with Brock Purdy, like what we saw last season. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him there, but just not someone that I find myself targeting very often. Sean Watson for $6, though, is totally fine. He is going to be potentially be a difference maker at the quarterback position. Not something that I find myself targeting on a very high rate, just because there's the whole moral obligation, and I don't feel like I want to be rooting for him. But on top of that, it's just a situation where he looked really bad at the end of last season. He doesn't run quite as much as he did when he was younger. Lots of red flags there. His only real proven wide receiver threats Amari Cooper, who's getting older. There's just some concerns. I I just shouldn't do it, Walker. There's other guys I want more. I was considering doing Walker here just to get myself another high upside running back here because I think just because I think David Montgomery is a really safe pick for me as my running back too. I think I could take a little bit more risk on by going with a guy like Kenneth Walker, someone that could legitimately be a top 10 running back this season without an injury happening. So it was a consideration. I didn't want to overpay or even pay pre-draft value, but I was going to put my foot in the water there. But thought better of it because there's a guy like this, Alexander Madison, and there's J.K. Dobbins later, and I want both of them. Probably can't get both, but I'll very strongly consider both of them. I'll go up to pre-draft value on each as well. I'll go to 15. Not going to go any higher, but we've got plenty of money left for our starting roster. Like I said, we've got $24 for three spots. Um, one's our flex. Our quarterback's going to be $1. Our tight end's going to be super cheap as well. So we had the money. No reason not to do it there. Um, and our next pick should probably be a quarterback. Basically, we're going to be spending very little on a lot of the rest of our players here, but Alexander Madison in the flex is really great. I'll go to 2 on Cousins. I really do think he's a really solid asset. Someone that I'd be comfortable starting every single week if I needed to, and think he's just a really nice value here. It sucks having to spend 2 on him, but sometimes if you nominate him for 1, someone's going to take him for 2. So, and I guess I'm kind of a Vikings fan now. There we got 2 Vikings back to back. I'll go to 8 for Connor. I really do think Connor's going to be a really rock solid player for everybody this season. There we go, Adam Thielen for $1. Tomorrow morning he'll be out in a video where I talk about him as one of the players rising in my rankings. So someone must have gotten access to the video a day early somehow. I'm kidding. Nobody gets access to anything early. I'm just joking, just so nobody's concerned that I'm leaking videos early to people or something. Aaron Rodgers is an interesting draft pick. I don't even really view him as someone that's on my draft board. There are other running back or quarterbacks going around him. Like I said, Geno Smith, Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins, Anthony Richardson, Jared Goff, even that I all think are going to perform at a higher level than him this season. So I don't find myself targeting Aaron Rodgers really at all. He doesn't offer any really real rushing upside. I think they're going to be a run first, slow paced offense. It's going to be kind of just weird to rely on Aaron Rodgers on a weekly basis, and it's going to be tough, I think, to want to count on him at any point this season. Calvin Kamara is going cheap, and I can get him in my running back 4. I'm interested. Not going to overpay there, but just don't want to put myself in a spot where I need him, and that's exactly where I'm at this point. He'd be the first player on my bench, be a guy that I could certainly make it through the first 3 weeks without, and I'd be okay with. Couldn't let Sanders go for $8. That was way too cheap. Um, yeah, I'll pass at this point. I don't have the money, and I do really want to get J.K. Dobbins. He's someone who's really risen up my rankings lately. I think J.K. Dobbins can certainly be a top 15 running back this season, and on ESPN especially, he's got a $5 pre-draft value. He's being drafted in like the 8th or 9th round in snake drafts on ESPN, and that is just way too late. I'm going to nominate him here and see if we can snag him for our bench. I'll go to 8. Not gonna go any higher. Big Hurt, Ben Hurt. Really seems like he's in a spot where he needs to start spending some money. He's got $70 remaining. I'm sure he's got a couple of guys in mind. Looks like Dobbins was one of them. Not a bad team. He's got Diggs and Andrews, two guys I really like. A couple decent wide receivers. Brees Hall's solid, and he's not gonna let Dobbins go, and he really shouldn't. He's running out of running backs to be interested in, so he's got to put his foot down here and make sure he gets Dobbins. If he doesn't take him here, it'd be a big mistake, I think, by Hurt. Yeah, there we go. Crazy seeing J.K. Dobbins. This is why it's just clear that J.K. Dobbins is not a $5 asset. ESPN's very much wrong. Every single draft I've been in, I've seen him go for 15 to 20. That's definitely how much he should be going for. He should be right up in the same tier of guys like Miles Sanders, Alvin Kamara, James Conner, stuff like that. He should be that expensive, not $5 like what ESPN's suggesting. So someone we could consider here at this point would be Jonathan Taylor. We've got a little bit of extra money to blow, and it would be nice to have him as our 4th running back just to see what happens. Um, it's a thought. I'm not going to overpay for him by any means, but it's something that's worth considering because of the true league winning upside he would give me if he happened to like get traded to the Dolphins and come out and play this next season. So it's worth keeping an eye on, just somebody that I'm not going to let go without even glancing at. Otherwise, though, we do clearly need to get a tight end at this point. Um, Looking at the tight ends here, they'll probably be the next thing we nominate. And I would really like to get Pat Freiermuth. I'd feel really good about him. I think he's going to be really consistent for us, and that's really all I'm looking for at my quarterback and my tight end. Now that I've waited on them, I want to get just some consistent performances out of them, guys that aren't going to give me goose eggs or really just weak losing performances. And I think that Cousins and Freiermuth could really help stabilize the roster while I bank on guys like Adams, Higgins, Lockett, Barkley, Montgomery, and Madison to just really put us over the top every single week. So I think that's what the approach is going to be. Ooh, sneaky. He bid 2 to start. Very interesting. I think Mostert is. I don't need him to start, so I'm not going to spend 3. But Mostert for $3 is perfectly viable. And Big Hurt did have to buy him. He's rolling with Brees Hall, and then Raheem Mostert is his only running backs right now. So he had to put his foot down and get a guy that he can actually start for the first month of the season. And Raheem Mostert's going to be a really nice asset for him. He's probably be in on a guy like Jamal Williams as well, given that Brees Hall is his RB1, and I really wouldn't want to start Brees Hall week 1 if I could avoid it. So maybe that's something he should be looking at as well. But we'll see what he does. I'm not here to give tips to my league mates while I'm in the draft. Javonte Williams for $7 is actually a really good value. I approve of Big Hurt doing that, but Big Hurt does have some injury prone running backs at this point. James Cook for $10 is a good value as well. Big Hurt is really getting involved. He's being smart. He did wait long enough that he did have to start actually getting guys that he needed at the running back spots. Now he's got four running backs between Brees, Javonte, Cook, and Mostert. Between those four, he can piece together some starters. I think that's totally fine. Big Hurt's been very active lately. That's the thing you got to do when you realize you've got too much money is just spend up and get guys that you want because you're going to run out of good players really soon. It just makes sense to make sure you get those guys. I considered bidding two here on Dalton Kincaid. Well, someone else did it for me, so I don't even need to think about it. But I don't want to be relying on Dalton Kincaid. It's just something that I'm not super excited about. Obviously, he's a really talented player. He's explosive. I think he's going to have some really nice weeks, but um, don't really think he's going to be the kind of guy that can actually carry you or be reliable on a weekly basis. Yeah, there's a lot of chatter in the league chat right now going on about Mike or Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts for $9, I think is totally fine. He's going to be a guy that, you know, it's boom or bust. You're probably burning $9. I really do believe that, but a a world exists where Kyle Pitts just takes that huge step forward. He comes back fully healthy from his injury, and Desmond Ritter's actually um, be good. So um, definitely going to be a solid asset. Someone that I think has a shot to really carry you at the tight end position. It's just not something that I find myself drafting very often. So we're gonna go to the tight end spot. We're gonna nominate Freiermuth. We're gonna hope we can get him for three. And yeah, Jonathan Taylor just went for $6. That is absolutely insane. That is really good value. Somebody that I genuinely think for $6 you've got to do it. He's got a shot to be a league winner, and $6 is not a very high price to pay. We just let Marquise Brown go for $4 or $6. I think that's a totally fine price tag. I have cooled on him just a little bit. He's not someone that I find myself getting super excited about the way I was early on in the offseason. It's becoming more and more likely to me that Kyler Murray misses the entire season, and if that happens, then I don't think Marquise Brown really has that top 15 wide receiver upside that I was hoping for early on. That being said, I think he's still a really solid, like low end wide receiver 2, high end wide receiver 3, someone that you can play on a weekly basis. He should have enough volume to be relevant, and Josh Dobbs should be the starter for the Cardinals. I don't think he's that bad. He showed some competency, I guess is the best word for it, when he was with the Titans at the end of last season. I think he's good enough to make the offense at least a professional A-run organization and, make them put up some points. And most of the targets are going to go to Marquise Brown in that offense. I think Marquise Brown's going to be plenty good. And at his price tag, I have no problem drafting him right now. So looking at our team here, we've got basically $3 per bench player almost, $2 on half, $3 on the other ones. And that's a nice spot to be in. We're obviously going to spend $1 on our kicker and defense. And that's going to give us a lot of flexibility here. Plenty of guys I like left. I really want to get a guy like Addison. I want Brian Robinson or Gibson or both. Obviously, I want Dotson. Other guys I like Gabe Davis quite a bit. Quentin Johnston's in consideration. Don't really want Tua now that I have Kirk Cousins, but I would still consider Anthony Richardson. I think Charbonnet, Warren, Algier, Bigsby, who I know goes later, is an option. Marvin Mims is someone else I would consider if I can find him. Plenty of guys late that I like quite a bit. $2 for Cooks is really nice now. And here I will go up to about 5 on Dotson. I think he's going to be really, really solid this season. He's a guy that I'm super excited about. Really think he can take that step forward. And, 6 is a bit of an overpay here, but I guess I'm not going to get him for 6 either. JSN is someone else I would consider. Looking at tight end, we could consider taking a second tight end as well. Although now that I got Freiermuth, I don't feel as inclined to do it. I could take a guy like David Njoku, give myself that more of a boom bust sort of tight end, sort of let myself play matchups a bit. It's a consideration. I'm not opposed to that. If I get Njoku for 2, I would probably do that. But I really want to get a couple more wide receivers. I'd really like to get Sutton. I want all 3 of these guys right here. If I get those 3, I'll feel really good. Don't really want Ingram. Not someone that I'm targeting at this point. I think he's going to be just fine this season, and that's really what he is. He's just fine. There's not a bad draft pick, not a good draft pick, just somebody that's going to be, a middle tier tight end 1. Should be like the tight end 7 or 8 at the end of the season. Have a couple nice weeks, have a couple lower performing weeks as well, but totally fine where he's being drafted, just not someone that excites me right now. We'll see how much Dalvin Cook goes for. I have no problem taking him for 2. He's someone that I really do think is going to be useful for the first few weeks of the season. Not someone that I'd be super excited about long term, but if I get him for 2, that's crazy. Oh. So are. And now we're going to nominate Addison, obviously someone that I'm sure everyone here wants after how much I've talked him up. I'm going to go up to about 5 here. I could be talked into more. I think he's going to be a super strong asset for us this season. And I already have Kirk Cousins, so it gives us a nice stack. He is someone that I'm super excited about. I've talked about him all off season. I'll go to 7, but it feels bad. I won't go to 8, but I will go to 7 for him. I'm super excited. Oh, man. Plenty of players left that I still like, but we don't have any bench players yet, which is fine. We obviously want a kicker in defense as well. Those will be our probably last 2 picks. Although at defense, I do like to target the Saints right now. They've got a really favorable first 6 weeks of the season. They are guys that I think a defense that I think is actually good as well. So they're a defense that I target pretty often, although they're not somebody that I'm like I need to leave the draft with. It's not something that I'm going to bend over backwards for. It's getting pretty expensive there with Cortland Sutton getting up to $9. It's crazy that we're seeing Sutton go for 9. Judy went for 5 earlier in the draft. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think you could make a really strong argument that Sutton should go ahead of Judy at this point, but it's just funny to see how drastically different that is than what their consensus ADP would be. So looking at players we still want, obviously I like Samaje Perine quite a bit. Um, JSN's interesting. I already have Lockett, so it's the only concern I really have. He's not someone that I really want to be targeting at this point. I know I queued him earlier, but upon second glance, it's not something that I'm super excited about. So let's look at the wide receivers again. I do feel like we're sort of running out. Obviously, I want Gabe Davis. He's someone I like quite a bit. Treylon Burks is another guy I would consider. Um, Elijah Moore for $1 is totally fine as well. Marvin Mims is someone we like. But we are running out pretty quickly here. I know I've talked about him a couple times so far this offseason, but keep an eye out for Deontay Hardy, especially in deeper leagues. Deontay Hardy is someone that I genuinely think is going to have a big season. Not like a huge season. I'm not talking like 1,000 yards or anything, but he's going to have a few really great weeks for them. And he's just a really great deep threat. He's going to return kicks for them. He's going to touch the ball quite a bit. They're going to utilize him quite a bit in a few different ways. And he's someone that I am excited about this year for sure. David Njoku's someone I will pay 2 for. I know I already have Pat Fryermuth, but I'm more than willing to spend $2 on him just to have that variety at my tight end position, allowing me to play matchups. I think David Njoku's got a shot at breaking out and being a really very real difference maker for us, and that's sort of how I view the tight end position. Want to be able to, draft 2 if I wait. Khalil Herbert for 3, that's a really great value. I think he's going to be a rock solid asset for everybody this season. Somebody that I think's got a very real shot at being a top 20 running back this year. And I mean, it seems like the Bears' backfield is all his. Somebody that, he's a talented player. I do like quite a bit. Oh, it's kind of hoping I could get AJ Dillon for $2 there. I think that Dillon's going to be a guy that you can use on occasion, and if something were to happen to Aaron Jones, he's somebody that would legitimately take over as being like a top 10 running back, maybe top 15, I guess. But he's a good player. He can catch passes. He's obviously talented, so no problem taking AJ Dillon for $3 at this point in the draft. He's a guy that we're running out of running backs that you can rely on a weekly basis, and he's certainly one of them that's left that you could. As we can see, everyone in this draft does really love rookies. We saw Zay Flowers go for 9. We saw Jordan Addison go for 8. We saw JSN go for 7, and now we've got Quentin Johnson at 6. So all of them going for significantly more than their pre-draft value, and I've got no problem with it. There's just a lot of value in taking guys that can really break out, and all these rookies can do that. So I think they're all good picks. I've got no problem with it there. Tyler Higbee's a really great $1 tight end option at the end of drafts. I really do think he's going to be a really solid PPR option, someone that you can count on a weekly basis. And if you wait on the tight end position, I think it's a totally fine thing to do, much like what this team Gastelum did. Obviously, you have elite quarterback, running backs, wide receivers are a little iffy, but really good way to just really round out the roster, get yourself some stability, and be happy with the team that you have there. Not a bad option at all. And this is someone I want. I'm sure they're aware of that. I'll go to 5 for him. He's someone that I'm super excited about this season, especially in PPR formats. And if he's my running back 4, that's super exciting. Nobody's letting me have good things. That's very sad. Not going to overpay too much. I think Brian Robinson's comparable. I do prefer Antonio Gibson, but Brian Robinson's someone that I can get now and someone that I like. I will go to 2 or 3 on Swift. I don't think Swift's going to be a reliable option, but there's the upside there, and I don't need him. So for $3, I'm willing to do it. And worst case scenario, I'm making someone pay 4, and that doesn't make me sad at all either. So I'll let him go here, but just want to bring it up that I would be interested enough in DeAndre Swift to spend those $3. Now that it's my turn to nominate, I think I might go ahead and nominate the Saints defense, the defense that I want. I'll spend $1 on him. If someone wants him for 2, they can have him, but they're going to be the defense that I'd be happy rolling out for the first 6 weeks of the season. Really favorable matchup to start the year. I'm not going to spend 3, but that's sad. Perine for $3 is something I'm really happy about, though. Perine's a guy that I'd be comfortable starting pretty much all season. I really do think it's going to be a 1A, 1B situation, even if Javonte comes back and is healthy. It looks like Perine's going to be the guy that gets the goal or the passing down work, and that's very valuable in a Sean Payton offense. They throw the ball to the running backs a ton in his system, and I think it's going to be somebody that you can actually start on a reliable basis, someone that you're going to be really happy to be rostering in PPR formats. I'll go up to 3 on Warren. I know it feels bad. So we've got to fill out 4 more roster spots along with our kicker and defense. We've got $12 to do it, so that's no problem at all. I'm going to get Anthony Richardson here. He's someone that I really want to have on my bench to really back up Kirk Cousins, give myself that upside at the quarterback position, someone that I can rely on a weekly basis, potentially to be like a league-winning asset for me. So I'm happy to get him there. It feels a little bad having to draft 2 quarterbacks and 2 tight ends. It's not something that I generally find myself doing, but I've got really good wide receivers, really good running backs. I think it's going to be something that I'm really happy with overall with my roster. And it's a really different build than something that I found myself doing very often. It's kind of fun seeing how I've had to maneuver this team because I'm in an auction draft with 11 people who know exactly how I feel about pretty much every single player, and that makes it so that I've really had to sort of pivot on my draft strategies, go towards different things, and that's been kind of fun. Not that it's really something you can practice or exercise for, but it's something that really helps, especially in home leagues as well, because in your home leagues you've got those people in your leagues that just sort of want to watch you squirm, make you not get the players that you want, and it's definitely something that you know knowing how you can adapt on the fly is something that's really helpful, and I like how I sort of built this team, even though it's a bunch of players that I don't really find myself necessarily targeting on a very consistent basis. Brian Robinson for 2 is awesome. Super excited about that. Oh, want to give Davis there. We couldn't get him. Looking at wide receiver here, though, we are pretty thin at wide receiver. Um, it's not great at all because we only have 3 wide receivers I like. I have Adams, Higgins, and Lockett, which is good. Really solid top 3, but we have pretty clearly run out of wide receivers at this point. Um, Michael Thomas is someone that I'm actually interested in. I don't really want to be taking any running backs at this point because I have 3 running backs on my bench. I've got 3 in my starting lineup. I think we're done with running back at this point. So I will be looking towards the wide receiver position. Michael Thomas is someone that I think I could start. I would be considering queuing Jakobi Meyers here, but the only reason I'm not is because I already have Devontae Adams, and I don't want to put myself in a spot where I'm playing 2 Raider pass catchers. That just feels bad. It's not something that I want to put myself in a spot and be doing. So we got Marvin Mims as someone that I'm interested in. Obviously, Michael Thomas I'm interested in. I think Juju could be just fine. A report came out today that his knee is quote unquote about to explode. I'm not worried about that necessarily, although it does encourage me in terms of the Devontae Parker sleeper that I've been a fan of already. Um, I know I've talked about him quite a bit as like one of my favorite really late round sleepers. He's someone that I'm willing to look at least. So someone I'm keeping in the back of my mind as well. Um, like I said, we're pretty much only looking at wide receiver at this point. Allen Lazard is like another guy you could play in a pinch if you need to. Romeo Doubs is a good flex option sometimes. MVS is a decent boomer bust option. Bateman's okay. Van Jefferson's okay. There are guys left that we can make work, but it's not super exciting at this point in the draft, obviously, and that makes sense. We're at a point where we're picking from the bottom of the barrel here, so we'll nominate Michael Thomas. Let's just try and get him on the roster. We'll go to 3. It feels bad, but he's the best player on the board at the wide receiver position. We got to get him if we can. I don't want to be relying on him, but I will spend 5 just because he's the best player left. And that's something that I'd recommend too. When you get towards the point where you've got a couple of spots left to fill on your roster, just spend up to whatever you got to spend to get the best guy available. Obviously, you're putting yourself in a spot now where, okay, now I've got to wait for my bench or for my next couple nominations to get guys, and I've got $1 per player, but that's totally fine. Michael Thomas is somebody that I could legitimately start at some point this season, and I did need to get another wide receiver because of how thin I am at wide receiver outside of my top 3, and especially in the 3 wide receiver league, it is concerning that I'm in a position now where I really don't have depth at that position. That's something that I maybe have a little bit of regrets regarding, but all the wide receivers at this point started going for very expensive. It was going to be really tough to get any of them, and I've got no problem with where I'm at the wide receiver position. It's just something that I'm going to have to, stay fluid on. It'll be probably what I'm looking at on the waiver wire just as much as any other position. Elijah Moore is someone I could certainly be interested in for $1 as well. Rondale Moore is another option. Just, for $1, he's totally fine. Chargers defense is an interesting one because they play the Dolphins week 1, so I don't know why you would exactly be targeting them, but interesting. At defense, I'm going to probably be trying to grab the Ravens here. They get the Texans in week 1. That's going to be a really nice matchup for them, and they're normally a good defense as well, so that's probably my best bet here. Elijah Mitchell's a great pick at this point in the draft as well. Another guy just at the point where we're throwing darts, grabbing handcuffs. I think he's a guy that could very much be, a league winner if something happened to Christian McCaffrey. Obviously, we don't want to root for that by any means, but you got to understand where the backups come in, and he's one of those guys with a guaranteed role if the starter ahead of him goes down. So Elijah Mitchell's a good draft pick at this point in the draft for sure. Taking a look at the budgets here, it seems like everyone else is getting pretty close down to that $1 per player. Draft will probably start flying along a little bit quicker here soon now. Look at another team. Sokka's got a lot of work to do with only 5 players, but it's tough to argue with those 5 players. There's some very real upside on that roster, although it's going to be a tough start to the season. Monsters Inc. is pretty much full. Steelbreaker's pretty much full. Eichel's getting there. Lambert's getting full. Dumpster Fire's getting full. Still work to do here. Still needs a quarterback too. That's a little concerning. Interesting to see what happens there. Meanix is done, so that's fun. Gastelum needs work to do. Challenger and Hurt is also almost done. So teams are filling up. We're getting there. This is a situation too where if you're Lambert, you could see that Hurt only has 1 player left, and it just made sense for them to get Elijah Moore because they didn't need anybody else. They were done at that point. So that roster's done. They were not going to get outbid. See if I can actually get the defense that I nominate this time. Second time nominating the defense, so hopefully I don't get Jesus. Daniel Jones went for $1. Really great late round draft pick if you need another quarterback. I don't think Monsters Inc. needed it because it had Lamar Jackson, so I wouldn't have necessarily done that, but got no real problem with it. I think he's going to be somebody that you can rely on. Another really quality late round target here in Rondale Moore, especially in deeper PPR leagues. I think Rondale Moore is a guy that you can play in your flex spot because he's just going to be manufactured touches and be a guy that you can count on to get you some points. And sometimes that's all you're looking for in your flex in these deeper leagues. Rashad Penny is another guy that, even though I've cooled off on him a little bit, I think at this point in the draft he's a perfectly fine dart throw. Somebody that could legitimately be a guy that, you know, puts up top 20 running back numbers if he can actually get a stranglehold on that starting job. I don't know what's going to happen in Philadelphia. I'm not going to pretend I even have a really good gauge at all, but I think he's got a legitimate shot to be good. Jayden Reed's an interesting spot to pick here. I've got no problem with it. It's a rookie with upside, obviously, decent dart throw, but just not someone that I've really targeted very often. He's going to be a slot receiver. No real touchdown upside. Lower passing volume offense. Should get less targets than Romeo Doubs. So I don't find myself drafting Jayden Reed very often, but I don't have any problem taking a shot at this point in the draft. Obviously, McKinnon for $1 is a great value. Didn't let him get him though. Mooney for $2 is totally fine too. You're betting on the chart the Chicago Bears offense taking a step forward and being more pass heavy, obviously, but certainly something that could happen. No real problem banking on that by any means. And take the Commanders defense here. If they play the Cardinals in week 1, should be a pretty favorable matchup for the first week. Obviously, I got to move on from them after that, but certainly going to be a really good start to my season with them, and then I can work from that later. DJ Chark for $1 is also a quality dart throw here at this point in the draft. I know he's dealing with a hamstring injury. Mingo, however, would have been my preference if I was picking a Panthers wide receiver at this point. Mingo's the guy with more upside, if you ask me. High draft capital rookie, a guy that could develop with Bryce Young pretty early on, and really I do think has a lot of upside. So he's my favorite Panther wide receiver to draft, but I think all three of them have upside. Adam Thielen could be a nice, consistent PPR guy. I think that Jonathan Mingo's got a legitimate shot to be a difference maker potentially at the second half of the season at least. So just worth taking a look at on him, keeping an eye on him for sure. It's fun seeing at this point in the draft where people don't have money to bid up anymore and they get really upset when they get priced out of a player. Just fun to really see how the strategy works, see how it makes sense to save a couple dollars here and there for this point in the draft. Obviously, I'm at the point where I've got $1 per player, so I don't have any real control over my team, but I'm pretty happy with my team overall. I probably should be looking to trade a running back for a receiver at some point here, and I can be looking to do that, but um, overall, I like the team. I think I'd prefer to maybe have one less running back on my bench and one more wide receiver. So I'll maybe be looking to trade Jaylen Warren or P. Ryan or Brian Robinson for like a lower tier wide receiver 3. Get myself one more guy that I can consistently play on a weekly basis. But overall, I'm happy with the team for sure. I think I'm going to be taking Marvin Mims with my next pick as well. He's my highest ranked wide receiver left, a guy that I really do think the world of, and I think he's got a legitimate shot to be a meaningful contributor to your fantasy roster, and he's going to get a shot to prove it early on. If he doesn't have it, wow, Jerry Jeudy's out. Ezekiel Elliott for $1 or two at this point in the draft, I've got no problem with. Going to be a really solid asset, a guy that he'll fall in the end zone a few times. Algier for $3 is totally fine as well. I think he's going to be a legitimately useful asset, a guy that obviously has top 10 running back upside. If something happens to Bijan Robinson, God forbid. Russell Wilson's somebody that I'd be pretty happy about as well, a guy that I do think could be top 10 quarterback this season, a guy that I think is going to run a lot more than he has in the past, and somebody that I am excited about seeing what happens for this season. And here we go. We'll nominate Marvin Mims, see if we can get him for the dollar. Couldn't get him for a dollar, of course, because why would they let me have him? Roschon Johnson is someone that I'm excited about as well this season. I think he's got a shot to be the pass catching running back for the Chicago Bears. He's going to be given a few opportunities to carry the ball here and there as well. I think he's a really talented player, and I think he's got a shot to potentially surpass Khalil Herbert on the depth chart. Um, so he's an interesting late round flyer, someone that I'm excited about. Obviously, I think Khalil Herbert's definitely the go to guy here for now, but Roschon Johnson's got legitimate upside, and I think he's a great draft pick here. I think Rashad Bateman's really quality late round dart throws as well. I know that it seems obvious at this point that it should be Zay Flowers, but um, Bateman's proven it on the NFL field already. He's shown that he can be a legitimately quality fantasy asset when he's been healthy, and I think he's still got a shot to be the wide receiver one for the Ravens. And at a dollar, especially going this late, I think he's totally worth taking a dart throw on. Someone else I haven't really talked about much is Zay Jones. I know he's not sexy by any means. He's certainly probably the wide receiver three in Jacksonville, but he should get some some work. He could easily be a guy that you can play as a spot starter in your flex position, and I think that might be what I'm looking for at this point because I don't have really any consistent bench wide receivers at my wide receiver position. Um, my only bench wide receiver is MT, and that's a little bit concerning. Tyler Boyd's a quality, just like, grab him for a deeper league, play him on a couple of weeks during the course of the year if you need to, and otherwise ignore him on your roster. I think he's a perfectly fine $1 asset late. So I think I'm going to go Zay Jones here, someone that I can trust. Hopefully I don't get sniped here. God dang, I really can't get a break on these $1 guys. Jerome Ford's someone that I'm interested in. I think he's pretty clearly got the backup role intact for the Cleveland Browns. He could easily see some of that pass catching work as well for them. And I think he's definitely got a shot to be somebody that will legitimately perform at a high level if something happened to Nick Chubb. And I think he could have some flex appeal in like deeper leagues in PPR formats. So he's the true handcuff. He's the guy that you want to draft. I mean, obviously, you just saw Kareem Hunt go right after him. Maybe it's possible that Kareem Hunt were to get signs back in Cleveland. I don't really know what's going to happen there. I wouldn't bet on that happening, but it's just something to consider. Now I've got Romeo Doubs. He would have been one of my other favorite options to be nominating here. Someone that I really do think is going to be a really solid asset for you guys this season. Should have a reliable target share in the offense and be someone that you can trust. Someone else who I know is way down there on draft boards right now, but I really do want to take a look at him is Tank Dell. In fact, he might be my highest ranked wide receiver left on the board. I do believe he's going to be the wide receiver that you want to own in Houston this season. Somebody that I think is going to get a ton of targets. He's going to be a guy that actually catches a lot of passes for Houston. He's a really talented wide receiver. He's looked great in training camp. He's someone that I do want on my roster. I think he's got a really similar mold to what we saw with like Amon-Ra St. Brown earlier. Obviously, he's not as big of a player, but same kind of thing, slot wide receiver that fell in the draft. I think he's just a really good player, a guy that even though he's on a bad team, he's going to have enough targets that I do like. And I think Tank Dell will probably be the guy that I draft here, someone that I genuinely think could have a really good season here. And nobody's going to outbid me for Tank Dell. That'd be silly. Oh, shit. There we go. We got Tank Dell nominated. Someone that I do genuinely think is going to be really solid. Somebody that like I said, I talked about him a lot. I'm really excited about what he's going to do this season. I think he's got a lot of upside and someone that I'm actually excited about. And I needed a wide receiver. He'll round out that spot really nicely for us. And up next, we'll just have to draft our kicker, and then I will get out of here, at least from recording the video standpoint. So, won't make you guys sit through the rest of this. Really enjoy doing this draft. Really exciting to actually have a subscriber league. I will be doing this league every year going forward. The winner of this league will be guaranteed a spot next year, along with being allowed to come on the channel. So that'll be something for them to play for. It should be super exciting. And then next season, when it's this time of the year again, I'll be happy to accept more submissions and get 10 more of you guys in the league. So it's going to be really fun, really exciting. I really appreciate all the support you guys have been giving me. It's been a lot of fun watching the channel grow, and I really appreciate getting all this interaction, all the community growth, and it's been a lot of fun. So if you guys want to get more videos like this, I'll be putting out videos, several videos a week throughout the course of the regular season. I'll be here all year to help you guys win your leagues. I would really appreciate it if you guys would just subscribe to the channel. You can click the notification bell as well so you get get notifications as videos come out. It's going to be just a really fun year, a year where I really do think we can grow the channel, really do super exciting time just to sort of watch the channel grow and really help as many of you guys as possible. If you guys did like this video as well, please do give it a thumbs up. If you guys have a specific team that you guys liked the most out of any of these, let me know in the comments. I'll be doing a recap video as well on this, and I'll try and keep you guys posted on the subscriber league just intermittently so you guys can see what's happening there. But it's been a lot of fun, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this video. If you actually made it all the way through here, that's pretty cool. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.